So a few months ago, I got this 8.2 foot Bris dinghy. It's their smallest inflatable boat, and I was hoping their lightest. But looking on their website when I was researching this, I noticed that the specifications had everything, including maximum weight, maximum horsepower, all the dimensions, but nowhere on there was the weight of the actual dinghy. Now the weight of this thing is important to me because I weigh all of 140 pounds. And I really didn't want to try to manhandle something that was substantially heavier than me. And you see this really nice bag. It fits in there great, but it's not a Bris bag. The bag that it came with was basically a big open sheet of canvas with some tie straps, and I just thought that it was way too fiddly to try to manhandle this thing and get it rolled up in there and tied up. So I'm using this bag. It's an old bag from a West Marine dinghy, same size. It was the first dinghy I bought. I bought it used. It looked great, and within the first 30 days it had 40 leaks. I repaired them all and it just kept leaking. So that thing ended up in the garbage and I ended up with a good bag. So today I'm going to show you how you set it up, the pluses and minuses of the design, and I'm going to go ahead and weigh it. I've got a little 2-part block and tackle set up to this old oak tree with a mini crane scale, and I'm going to inflate that thing, put it all together, and we'll hoist it up and see what it weighs. But first, let's get it out of the bag and we'll talk a little more about the details of the design. And this is the sad look of a limp dinghy. Now this is not the inflation pump that it came with. It came with a foot pump, which actually, believe it or not, is a little more efficient than this, even though this is supposed to blow whether you're pushing or pulling. The boat has 3 flotation chambers and 1 extra chamber for the keel, which basically forms a little bit of a V in the hull, which is one of the things I was looking for when I was looking for a dinghy. Now you definitely don't want to inflate it completely, especially any particular chamber. You want to bring the chambers up to pressure almost evenly, or as evenly as you can, and you can't really bring it all the way up to pressure until you get the floorboards in. So you want it about 40% full, 50% full before you put the floorboards in. Whew, this is a workout. And it might look pretty full in the camera, but really it's not. And these are the floorboards. And this canvas bag, if you want to call it that, is actually the bag that's supposed to house the whole thing, floorboards and all. They should have an option for like a premium bag that has carrying handles that are wraparound straps. And that's what the bag looks like. You're supposed to get everything into this little semi-rectangle here. And I bought this little inflatable boat to serve as a dinghy for my sailboat. An inflatable dinghy, or actually any dinghy for a sailboat, just adds that extra dimension of freedom. You can actually go to shore or visit another boat, or like I do, take it out to nearby creeks and do some fishing. All right, let's put these floor panels in. It comes with 3 floor panels. 2 of these aluminum panels that are identical to each other, and this plywood one. Now, believe it or not, this plywood one, which is about the same size, weighs probably a third less than these aluminum ones. They're just way too heavy. I don't know why they built them at a such heavy gauge aluminum. Now, the wooden one goes in first, and when I first got it, it was really difficult to get in there and get it all the way forward. So I ended up carving back, actually trimming back this corner. It used to come out probably 1.5 inches more. I trimmed it back and have it more in line with the shape of the front of the boat. And the best way I've found to put it in is to get one corner in over there and then just rotate it in. So now comes the tricky part. That's putting these aluminum panels in. They're tongue and grooved for the lateral joints. And there's a ridge here on this edge that's meant to take this aluminum stiffening piece that slides on top of it and holds these 2 panels from buckling. I don't use this. it adds more weight and more complexity for the assembly and disassembly. And it's one more thing to stow. And I haven't had a problem with the floorboards buckling up or buckling down. So you may find it different. Maybe you're carrying heavier loads. So what I find is easiest is to start way in the back and slide the panel up against the transom underneath these two little tabs. Now to put the next one in, you kind of have to tent it up a little bit. So you put the tongue and groove joint together in the front. It takes a little bit of strength to have to lift this and get the tongue and groove to line up as you have it tented up like this. Then you make sure there's nothing in the way and you just shove it down. And that's it. The next step would be to put it on those little rigid pieces. So I'll go ahead and put it in for you guys. You do have to kind of push, and you can't put any weight on this because you won't get it on there. And it just shoves up in there. It's not horrible to put in. And this is where I decided not to use them because the second one is super fiddly to get in there. And that took me an extra 3 or 4 minutes. And now the seat goes on, and I like to put it in from the stern. It actually goes in pretty easily. This is the one thing I was worried about, but it actually goes in. Don't go too far with one until you get the other one started. And once you got them aligned, you can just slowly slide it forward. And quite frankly, don't go too far forward to have it in the rowing position. That's about right there. And now we can inflate it the rest of the way. Now, last time I took it to the boat, I timed myself. From the time I took it out of the truck to the time I had it ready to go, it was 14 minutes. Not bad. Now let me show you what pumping up the keel does to the hull shape. So you can see we end up with a little bit of a keel and a little bit of a V-bottom. And just because I want to weigh this thing with everything that you need to actually use it, I'm going to go ahead and put on the oars. And some of you may be saying, well, why didn't you just weigh it in the bag and weigh everything else separately? Air has weight. An empty scuba tank weighs noticeably less than a full scuba tank. So I know it's not going to be, but maybe a pound, maybe a half a pound of air, but I want to get all of it. All right, we've got the moment of truth here. I've got a little skinny bridle here that I'm hoping will center and level off the weight. If not, we'll do it by hand. All right, I'm going to set up the camera so it can see the crane scale, and I'll lift it up. All right, it's going to go up as I pull on it. All right, 90.8. Let's do it again in kilograms. $40.9. So I said in the description that this is an impartial review, and it is. We paid full price for this. Actually, my wife paid full price for this. It was a gift. Of course, I picked it out, and so I bear the brunt of any problem. But let's just take a look at general fit and finish, which I think is pretty good. One of the things I really liked is that the seams are heat welded and not just glued. It's got a really nice little rub rail there to absorb rubbing and impact, so it's not right up against the hull. I really like this strap that is glued in all the way back and allows you to have this handhold. Now, it was put together with like a really lazy Brummel, so I put a whipping on it and make sure it wasn't going to come off. I did that all the way around. The aluminum parts are super rigid. Really impressed. A little bit unhappy with the weight of the bottom. The bag sucks. That's the one thing I would say is just a no-go on it. The oar locks are nice and big. They got a big footprint for glue. That's a good point because you really stress these quite a bit. These are just keepers for the oars. The handles, again, big, bulky, lots of glue area. The trailing end of these pontoons are really hard, so if you lift it up and drag it, it's not going to be a big deal. It's got the typical pretty heavy-duty transom with the transom saver with the waffle pattern so that your outboard doesn't slide around on you. These like triangular flaps, at first I thought, well, are these reinforcements? That's kind of ridiculous. That's not a direction that you're going to need reinforcement for. But what I think this is to prevent splashing from the motor coming back up into the boat. Now the one thing that's lacking that I wish it had is handles on the transom. It would be nice to have handles here and here on either side so you can have somebody help you lift it up. Otherwise, picking it up from here, really difficult. So the two big drawbacks for this thing are, one is that bag, which is a joke. It should come with a good bag, or at least have an option to purchase a better bag from them. The filler valves are just the standard filler valves you get on any of them. Having that inflatable keel really makes a difference, especially when you're rowing. You can really feel the difference. It doesn't drag near as much. And I haven't found anything that I see that is sort of wanting to come apart, or any seams that weren't well put together. Everything looks pretty good. I think they have pretty good quality control coming out of their factory. Floorboards are way too heavy, and that fit for that front floorboard should have been worked out a little better. A little too tight right out of the box. All right, let's take it down to the lake. All right, I've never actually done this before. I actually had the boat out here on the dock. So hopefully we won't end up with a disaster where everything goes into the water, including me. So 90 pounds, or close to 91 pounds for this. What do you guys think? I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion. I think it's a bit heavy for such a small boat. I've seen folks quoting like 48 kilograms for a rib, a boat with a fiberglass hull. And I just don't believe that's true. This thing's at what, 40, 41, 42, I can't remember. 40.9. Question is, what should I be expecting? Here we go. All right, I'm still dry and this thing's in the water. Go ahead and just pull it around this side and get in at the stairs. There's one thing when you have a boat that's this small and this sort of buoyant, just sits so high in the water, even though it's really wide and it isn't going to tip over, there's definitely a stability issue. And that's because there's no inertia to this boat. Because relative to its volume, it doesn't have any weight. So if you shift around, this thing shifts around with you. It's like being on ice skates. So you got to be careful getting in and moving around on the boat. I just heard a big bull gator. Anytime you move in the boat moves more. So it can definitely test your balance. If you're up here and you go to reach, the whole boat moves quite a bit. So it is really stable as far as it not wanting to tip this way. And you can sit all the way on one or the other pontoons if you've got an outboard, and that works really well. It doesn't like heel over very much at all. The center seating is fine, and it rows pretty well. Now, just like a car that has a really short wheelbase, it's not very like directionally stable. So the slightest little bit of sort of asymmetric rowing will put you in a spin and get you out of shape a little bit. But once you get used to it, it actually rows pretty nicely. And in fact, if I were going to row this thing a lot, I would put a little like skeg on the back, like hanging a fixed rudder, just to give me a little more stability going straight. Really what will make it super stable and want to go straight is hanging a little motor on this thing. Now I don't have a gas outboard, but I've got a trolling motor. Let's put it on and see what it does. This is my little aluminum, used to be a rowboat, but I customized it, decked it out, and turned it into like a perfect little lake bass boat. And I've got a trolling motor on the front and one on the back, and I think we can use this one on the inflatable. And this thing weighs probably, I would say, 20 pounds, maybe 25 pounds. So I'll go ahead and lower this down here. So this is actually a meaningful test to me because I've been really reluctant to put a motor on this, mostly because I just don't want to deal with the hassle of actually registering it. This is a 55-pound trolling motor, 12 volts. Let's plug it in and see what happens. So this is pretty good. This is not even full speed. It's about 2/3 speed, 3/4 speed maybe. Well, it's, what is it, 4 to 5. So I guess that's what, 80%. I'm moving pretty quick. Let's see what it looks like at full speed. Oh yeah. Full speed makes a difference. I can move. And I know that 100 amp hours will give me about 4 hours at full speed. And full speed is just around 5 miles an hour. So that's a 20-mile range. I imagine that having a 4 horsepower on here is probably a little more exciting, but this is quiet. Next time, we'll be building a portable power box with everything in it so it self-charges and is ready to go and it's easy to store. Look for that next video, and if you want to see how I built that other boat, I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out. Anyway, let's try this thing in reverse. I'll see you guys on the next video. Whoa. Whoa. Not quite as maneuverable. Around the duck. What? I'm gonna do a little drifting. Whoa. Woohoo. That can be exciting. Can also drop me in the drink.